Oh, Hitchcock, how you do love to create fear and paranoia. Even a person who's never been afraid of getting in the shower has to think twice about it after seeing Psycho. But can you take a shower without once turning your back or closing your eyes? I don't think so. Psycho, from 1960, 109 minutes, with Janet Leigh, Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, John Gavin, and Martin Balsam. Janet Leigh plays Marion Crane, a woman who wants to get married but can't because her boyfriend is stuck paying alimony to his ex and says they can't afford to get married yet. In a desperate move, she steals $40,000 from her boss and skips town. Exhausted from being on the run and a little lost, she stops for the night at a quiet old place off the main highway called the Bates Motel. And that's where stuff happens. Everything about Psycho is bold. It was Hitchcock's first pure horror film. It was made in black and white, even though by 1960 color was becoming the norm. It has daring subject matter, cleverly filmed and choreographed to get it past the censors. It has two of the biggest, most surprising plot twists ever, with scenes and characters that are still commonly known today, as is Bernard Herrmann's score, which is one of the most recognizable film scores in history. I'm not sure how old I was when I saw this the first time. It wasn't even the whole thing. This is one of those movies like Jaws and The Towering Inferno where I've seen certain chunks of it on TV a lot, but the beginning only once or twice when I was older. In Psycho's case, that was probably by design on my mom's part, since there are a couple things like the opening Love in the Afternoon scene in the seedy hotel that are pretty provocative. This is one of Hitchcock's more mature films. I remember that seeing that famous shower scene for the first time was shocking. I think it's still shocking, even if you've seen it several times, but actually it was the part toward the end where Vera Miles is walking through the house and meets Mrs. Bates that creeped me out the most. I remember sitting on the floor, that happened, and I was so startled, and it's funny to think about now, but I was really bothered by that. I think I had nightmares from that. Yeah, don't let little kids watch the movie. Obviously, I have seen this movie a few times, and one thing that I tried to pay attention to this time that was new was the dynamic that you don't even see because they're never on screen together between Janet Leigh and Vera Miles as sisters. I would have said before that as sisters they are very different, almost opposites. That Janet Leigh's Marion is the unrestrained, impulsive one, and Vera Miles' Lila is the serious, responsible one. But I realized that besides both being blonde, of course, they're both tenacious, and they both take matters into their own hands and make decisions, good or bad, firmly and with little hesitation. And I thought it was interesting that basically Hitchcock has two strong-willed, independent, beautiful women sharing the lead in this movie. That's different. I hadn't noticed that before. I don't know what that means, but it's unusual. The real star of the show, though, is Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. Norman Bates is gangly and awkward and strange, but with a boyish charm that I'm kind of tempted to fall for at first, and that's why it's an awesome performance. You have to fall for it a little, or the crazy twists in the story won't be as effective, and they are, every time. I saw Anthony Perkins in Psycho first, and then a few years later in On the Beach from 1959. What's more surprising, seeing him as Norman Bates first and then as a normal guy in earlier movies, or seeing him as a normal guy in earlier movies and then Norman Bates? I don't know. There are two insignificant inconsistencies in the movie that shouldn't drive me crazy, but do. Number one, the scene in the sheriff's house. Why did Hitchcock put the wife in both shots in this conversation? I get obsessed with looking at the changes in continuity with her expression and position. It's so distracting. And number two, Arbogast. Martin Balsam says his character's last name differently from everyone else. How did that happen?
My name is Arbogast, friend.
Arbogast?
It's Arbogast.
Mr. Arbogast? Name of...
Arbogast.
Arbogast?
This is Arbogast.
Arbogast.
Arbogast. Arbogast! Mr. Arbogast.
Arbogast.
Name's Arbogast.
Speaking of Arbogast, does anyone else think that stairs scene is bizarre? You know the one I mean. Weird. Kind of surreal. Anyway, that is Psycho. It's not among my favorites, I think, because it doesn't have that element of fun that I love about Hitchcock movies. I miss his signature witty dialogue and odd humor. However, I don't think that's the kind of entertainment he was going for with this one. This is a serious, scary movie with a driving tension from the opening credits, which I love, right to the end. It is a fascinating, disturbing, creative, extremely suspenseful movie and an essential part of the Alfred Hitchcock collection. Thanks for watching. Bye!